CTV News at 5. Misinformation has been prevalent during this pandemic. Dr. Kyle Anderson is with the University of Saskatchewan's College of Medicine, and CTV's Francois Bieber chatted with him about sorting fact from fiction and why science should be our guide.
Good science versus pseudoscience?
Yeah. So, if you think about like the herbal industry or things like that, where people can make these sort of scientific claims and say, this improves your memory or whatever it might be. And we know that that's not truly scientific, because if it did work, the scientific studies would prove it, and then we would actually prescribe it, right? Doctors would be saying, this is the compound you need to take. But there's been sort of this industry of, we can have some weak scientific studies, and that's okay if nobody's getting harmed. And right now, the distrust of science or this misinformation is harming people. It's not just harming individuals, it's harming us as an entire society, it's harming our economies, and it's something that we need to try and get in front of with education, because people will believe generally the first thing that they hear about a topic. And if the first thing they hear is one, chiropractor's opinion about how masks have no possibility of working, and then you've got thousands of, research scientists who do this for a living who say it does, someone will say, well, I heard this other thing first, and that's what I'm going to choose to believe.
You've been pretty active on Twitter. I saw the long string of texts that you had last night. What are you seeing? What is the biggest, misinformation that's being spread out there? And I think last night your rant was about sort of dying from COVID or with COVID.
Unless there is a big stamp on your head when you die that says you died from COVID, some people just don't believe that doctors have the competence and expertise to say that, yes, this lung infection that led to someone dying because they could not get enough oxygen, it was because of COVID. And some people will say, well, they had other pre-existing conditions. That doesn't negate the fact that they would be alive if they had not become infected. And it's just this sort of snowball of distrust, where once people buy into one conspiracy or one facet of this misinformation, they're more likely to sort of say, well, I already don't trust scientists and doctors. They have an agenda of trying to save lives or whatever it might be. And then they're happily picking up the next thing and then the next thing. And they create this sort of moving target where they say, okay, well, maybe you can prove this one point, but now I've started to believe in all these other points as well. And it's like trying to herd cats, right? If you just keep adding more cats, you're never going to get them all doing exactly what you want. And education is really the thing that we need to do, because until everyone is vaccinated and we can say, okay, it doesn't matter now what you believe or not because we're safe, we aren't at that point. And we still need people to trust the process and the information that comes out from reputable scientists.
And I mean, it's also the communication, the social media that we have access to. We, before social media, we would get books, newspapers, things like that. Now we're just flooded with opinions from BC, from people in Texas, from people all around the world. Mm-hmm. And that is just like, it's, talk to me about what impact that has on someone who, wants to learn about this and has all of these resources to go to, but 9 out of 10 of them are fake.
Yeah. So it's absolutely the case that lies or misinformation spread faster than the truth, because the way that anything spreads on social media is that if it's the most provocative thing, if it's that clickbait, that is what people are going to click on. They're going to share it. They're going to sort of, disseminate it throughout their sort of social networks. And the truth is usually not as attractive to people, right? It's facts and figures and numbers and dry sort of material where, you spend an hour reading a paper and you say, yes, they have proven their hypothesis that masks work, but someone else can make a 2-minute video posted on YouTube and, show some non-scientific, fake experiment and be like, see, masks don't work. And people are like, that's the thing I'm going to share because I have the attention span and the capability to say, oh yeah, that seemed to make sense. And they don't have that sort of critical thinking of, we need to have expertise and trust expertise.
It's easier to believe a crazy conspiracy theory that the government is trying to control us and take away our freedoms slowly and surely, rather than, no, what the doctors are saying could actually help save lives.
You know, people aren't necessarily used to thinking about really large numbers and exponential growth. And, you know, even if something has a 1 in 1,000 probability, if there's 1 million cases or 1 million incidents of that thing happening and it's deadly, that's 1,000 deaths, right? So people don't always extrapolate that. They're like, well, if it's 99% survival, I'm the 99%, obviously. Yes, 99 times out of 100 you would be, but that one time out of 100 you wouldn't. And you could be that 20-year-old with no pre-existing conditions who just by sort of cosmic bad luck, you're the person who is that 1 in 10,000 or whatever it might be that dies and would be alive if it weren't for the fact that you got infected with COVID. And a lot of times people, they don't sort of trust those numbers. They're the same sort of things where people play the lottery because they're like, yeah, definitely I'm going to win the more times I play. And they don't sort of think about what real probability is. Our brains are not really equipped to sort of conceptualize all of these numbers and probabilities because, you know, we've evolved to live in a world where you see something happen and there you go, cause and effect. Things are obvious. And when we're working with, you know, minuscule viruses that you can't see and massive numbers, and we're sort of looking at, you know, exponential growth, these are things that a lot of people say, well, I don't know, do scientists really know what they're talking about? Absolutely we do. But it's because we've trained our brains to process information in that way where it does make sense.
And you know, it's just so easy for people to go on Twitter, go on Facebook and say things like that. And then they hide behind freedom of speech, freedom of expression.
Mm-hmm. You know, if we were fighting a war against a human enemy, we would consider the people who are going against our best interests traitors. It would be treason to be aiding and abetting our enemy. And right now, when people are disseminating all of these anti-mask, you know, COVID's fake, people aren't really dying, hospitals aren't full of conspiracies, they are aiding and abetting the enemy virus that we're trying to defeat. And it is something that from the top down in leadership, we should have a very firm, informative messaging saying, sure, it might be your right not to get vaccinated. It might be your right not to wear a mask when we didn't have a mask mandate. But in doing so, you are degrading the quality of life of everyone in this society, in your home, in your community, in the province. And you need to stop that because your selfishness is harming everyone.
Make some good points. We've got more health news on the way next.